I'm bringing you a compilation of 4 of my favorite spring gnomes, and I will give you the link to the page where you can download all the patterns for these in the description below. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. I love you guys. First up is my little Ladybug gnome. This was one of my very favorite ones to make. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a 12 by 15 piece of fleece. We're going to fold it in half on the long side, on the 15-inch side, and then we're going to cut a curve on the side that is folded. So we're going to go about 4 inches down, and we're going to cut our curve to that 4-inch mark. And we're going to leave the 4 inches at the bottom because we're going to make a fold, and it won't fold well if you curve all the way down to that point. So we're just going to curve to that 4-inch point, and then we're going to cut that off, and then we're going to go ahead and take our glue gun, and we're going to glue those 2 pieces together. We're making a hat, and then we're going to turn it right side out. So just put glue all the way down. Make sure you put plenty, and make sure you let it dry good before you fold it. We're going to turn it to the back, and we're going to make our cuff. We're going to fold this up about 2.5 inches because we're going to have a 1.5 inch cuff on the front. Get that laid out good, and then we're going to glue that cuff in. Make sure it's straight, and then just glue it across the top, and then we're going to glue it across the back. Okay, then we're going to take our needle nose pliers, and we're going to turn that hat right side out, and then we're going to make our cuff on the front. Just turn it right side out, and those pliers work great for that. Turn our cuff up 1.5 inches, and we're not going to glue our cuff right now because we're going to add some accessories to it. Okay, put that aside, and we're going to go ahead and build our body. We're going to take 2 3-inch by 1-inch discs of foam, glue them together, make sure that they're straight. And then I went back and got some non-woven fabric because I'm going to roll it up in it just to make it really, really smooth before I put my fabric on it, because my fabric was a little bit thin and you could still see the styrofoam through it. So I'm just going to roll this right up in some non-woven fabric. You can use whatever you want to. Just put some kind of fabric on it if your fabric is a thin fabric. And this is just 9-inch by, I think, 24 inches is what I ended up making this. And it smoothed it out really, really nice. It also gives a little bit of extra body when you're putting in the stuffing. You're going to seam it up in the back. Put your hand in there and just smash that out. Alright, then we're going to go ahead and take our fabric, and we're going to make a nice seam along the 11-inch side. This is 11 inches by 9 inches. Just fold that seam up so we have a nice edge. And then after I did this, we're going to put our jeans on the bottom of this. You really could skip this step if you wanted to. And then we're going to put a seam down the side so that we have a nice back on his body. And then we're going to take it and we're going to roll our base up in it along the edge, and we're just going to do the lower edge only, not through the center where we did the other one, because you can see that glue through on thin fabric if you do. And then we're just going to seam up the back. Just put your hand in there and flatten that out. Alright, so we have our body. Now we're going to stuff it. And we're going to put a lot of stuffing in it. We'll pack it in there really, really well so it gives him a lot of sturdiness in his body. Push it way, way down there, and then we're going to tie it off. And we're tying it off about 2 inches probably from the top edge of the red fabric. And then take a string and tie that off with a string, just to secure that really, really well. And then don't cut the top of your fabric off because we are going to use that to secure our pipe cleaners. So leave all that top up there. Okay, we're going to put that aside, and we're going to go ahead and build his feet. We're going to take 2 corks and 2 sticks. Go ahead and drill your hole through the middle of your corks. And we're going to have to whittle off a little bit of the bottom of these to get these down into these feet. Just go all the way around and trim some off, and then we need it kind of be a little bit pointy with a blunt point so we can get them inside those feet. Push on inside that foot, and we're going to try to make both of them as even as we can. And we're going to take our stick in a minute and we're going to glue it in. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. Go ahead and whittle that one off as well so we can get it inside that foot. Alright, push that one on in there. You don't have to secure it with glue because those are in there pretty tight. They're not going anywhere. Okay, then we're going to add some glue to the center of them, and we're going to put our sticks in. Go ahead and fill that circle up with glue. Put that stick in, and we just want to make sure that we get them both even. Leave a lot of meat there so you can get it into the body, but we need to make sure that our sticks and our feet are even in length. If you don't get them exactly even, you can adjust them at the end. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and build his legs. We're just putting like a blue jean leg on him with a cuff. I just cut these off of an old pair of blue jeans. They're 5.5 by 5.5. We're just going to turn that cuff up 1/4 of an inch on both sides. And then we're going to make a nice 1-inch cuff for the front part of his pants. Okay, just going to turn that up 1 inch. Glue along the top edge of that. And we're going to do the same thing for both sides. Then we're going to wrap it around his foot just to make sure that we got our sizing right, so we can see where we need to put our seam down the back. Just wrap it around there. You can actually trim some of this off if you want to. I'm just finding out exactly where the mark is and what size seam I need to put on there. And it's about 3/8 of an inch. Just going to glue that down, and we're going to do the same thing for both sides. Just get them even and do the same thing. Just glue it down. Alright, then we're going to take his foot, so we make sure that we have our seam in the back. We're going to wrap it around there, figure out exactly where that needs to go so that the seam ends up in the very, very back. Okay, once you get it positioned, go ahead and glue down that one side. You want to make sure that you put a lot of glue on this because blue jean material is heavy and it's going to require a lot of glue. And you need to make sure that you spend some time holding that glue till it dries. Okay, we're going to wrap that all the way around. Hold it in place. While we're holding it in place, we're going to go ahead and cut off the top of it. We're going to cut down to where the stick is. Right there. And then we're going to start adding some slits in it, just down to the cork. And then we're going to trim off the top part of that. So you really, in reality, you really didn't need a 5.5 inch piece of fabric. I probably cut about 1.5 inches off at least. Go ahead and trim that all the way around because we're going to push this up against the top of the foot, so that when we put it into his pants leg, into his body, it's flush. Okay, get that trimmed way down, and then we're going to put glue in the center, and we're just going to glue that straight down. That way his leg has a nice finish when we actually put it into the body. Alright, when you finish that one, we're going to go ahead and put it aside, and we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing for the other foot. Just pull it around there, figure out exactly where the seam goes towards the back, and then start gluing it in. And then be sure and put plenty of glue on it because we want it to hold in there really good. Wrap that around, make sure that seam's in the back. Then we're going to cut off the top just like we did the other one. And we're going to start making those slits in that one as well. Same thing as we did with the other one. Then trim off the excess. And then we're going to glue that in. Just put a lot of glue in there and then just start pushing all that down towards it. Alright, we're going to put that aside and we're going to go ahead and start building the base of our body. See exactly where you want your legs to be sitting. Make sure your left's on the left and your right's on the right. When you figure out exactly where you want them set, just go ahead and poke a hole in there with your scissors. And then we're going to poke a hole in there with the pliers. Okay, check that foot, make sure where you want it, and then make sure where you want the other foot, and mark that off as well. Cut that through that fabric. And take your pliers and waller it out so you can get that stick in there. Alright, now that we know where those are going to be, we're going to go ahead and attach the base of our pants. And I used a 2-inch by 9-inch strip of blue jean material, and I cut it off at the inseam part, so I had a nice trimmed edge on the bottom part. Go ahead and turn it up about 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to attach it at the bottom. And as we're attaching it, we're going to mark where our holes are so we can get our foot right through these jeans as well. And put a little trim on the edge so we have a nice trimmed in edge at the back. And then hold it up to your jeans so that you know exactly that the seam is in the back, so you know where to start gluing. About right there. And then we're going to start adding the glue. And this is where I was saying that you probably didn't, you could have skipped the part about the trimmed up edge on the red fabric, because this part is covering it up. And as we pull that around, we're going to mark their holes. We're just going to put a slit in them so we can get our stick through those pants. Don't skip this part because you'll have a hard time finding where to poke your hole. And it's harder to cut the fabric when it's already glued to the body. So mark it as you're going. Just get it down all the way down to the bottom. You can even bypass it a little bit, go past it a little bit, because the blue jean material is pretty heavy. It'll still stand up on its own. And I didn't put this in the video, but after I finished making the whole thing, I did cut a 3-inch circle and put it on the bottom. And you can cut it out of whatever you want to. I used the stiffened felt for it. You get that trimmed all the way around. Put plenty of glue on these because the blue jean material is heavy. And then just hold that really good. Alright, then we're going to add a little belt to him. We're just going to come right around his waist and tie a little belt for him. Make sure that the seam is in the back so that your bow is in the front. And just tie that into a bow. And then we will clip off the ends. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and attach his legs to the body. We're going to poke right through those holes that we made through the jeans. And we're going to put his legs in there, and same thing with the other side. Make sure how you want them faced out. You can turn them out or turn them in, and then add glue to the hole. And put that stick in there. Be sure and put a lot of glue right around the edge top, but not too much. And hold that in. Make sure at this point you hold those in really, really well. I'm kind of fast forwarding through that where I held it, but I held it probably for a good 30 seconds before I let go of it. Okay, put that aside. We're going to do his beard. We're going to do a 3-inch by 3-inch. We're just going to take a pencil and measure it off 3-inch by 3-inch, and then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to make a little U shape all the way around. Then we're going to cut our fur, and remember, always cut your fur through the backing only, not through the face of the fur. And go all the way around there and trim that out. Okay, pull that aside and then go ahead and just start pulling off the excess because you want to clean that beard up. Okay, we're going to attach his beard, and we're going to do it right below where it curves in. So where it starts curving in, where you had your hand holding it, we're going to go right up to the edge of that. And glue that on really, really well. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start building our arms. We're going to use 2 3-inch by 7-inch pieces of fabric. We're going to glue down the 7-inch side, and then we're also going to glue down the 3-inch side. And we're going to do that on both of them. And we're using the little hair curler noodles, and I got those at Amazon. I'll put a link below where I got those. Some people find them at the Dollar Tree. I haven't seen them there yet. Okay, then we're going to take our little bead, and we're going to glue it right in at the very front part of his arm, of his hand, and then we're going to add our noodle for his arm. And then I'm just going to roll that up, not real tightly, because I don't want it to be a real skinny, skinny arm. Just kind of loosely roll that up and glue that off. and then add a little extra glue inside the hand. And on the next one, I'll actually show you what I did differently to glue the hand in good. So go ahead and add your bead for the hand, glue in your noodle, and then I added a line of glue right across there so that the bead stayed in when it was rolled up. And make sure that they're both same sides before you glue it in, and then glue the back edge of that. Okay, now we're going to take his body and we're going to form him. I just put his hand down to the top of his blue jean, and then just bend that noodle up and down against the shape of the body, and do the same thing for the other side, and then they'll set really good on his arms, on his body. Okay, I'm going to put that in on this side, and I'm just going to put a rubber band around it and hold it in. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. I am going to put a little bit of glue at the top part of his arm just to hold it in real good. Then I'm going to rubber band this one in as well. Before I tie him off, I'm just going to make sure that his arms are straight. Add a little glue underneath his arm. And then I'm just going to tie him off. You don't have to do it real tight. Just tie him off just so that he stays on there. He's not going anywhere. You got glue on there. Alright. Okay, we're going to go ahead and attach his hat. And what we're going to do first is we're going to take some pipe cleaner. And I probably cut about 2 inches off of mine. I measured them in here, trimmed them off, and then I cut them off a little bit more. We're going to stick them down into his top part of his head. And that's why we left that fabric. We're going to just stick those right in the middle and glue those in really, really well. Just go all the way around and then squeeze that shut. And that way we can bend his hat. Okay, go ahead and put his hat on. Pull it all the way down, just over the top part of his beard. And then we can give it a little bit of a twist so it can bend. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and attach his nose. And I did forget to tell you you're going to need his nose at the beginning. I'm just using a 3/4 inch felt ball. Just stick it right up underneath that hat. And we're going to add a little bit of glue to the top part of the nose to hold the hat in and secure it to the nose. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put him aside. We're going to go ahead and build our antennas. Take those little balls, roll them up really good, and it'll make them open up more. Sometimes they get flat in the bag. You're going to take that stick, that's a 1/4 inch stick, and we're just going to take about 1 inch up, and we're just going to wrap that as close to each other as we can. Just wrap it around all the way around until you get to the top. And then pull that off. We're going to do the same thing with another one. Just 1 inch up, and then start wrapping it. It makes for a nice antenna doing it this way. Then just kind of pull them open a little bit. Get them even. And then we're going to bend the top forward a little bit just so you have one loop, and we're going to attach our little pom-pom to it. Just hold that on there, let it dry, and then we're going to do the same thing for the other side as well. And you can make these as long as you want to. I mean, if you want to pull it out longer, you can. Or if you don't want it as long, that's your choice. Okay, secure that on there really good. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and build our little wings. This is where you use the felt that's stiffened. And just make sure that if you cut it with a Cricut, make sure that you stack them just like that they cut, because they are not asymmetrical. The bottom and the top are not interchangeable. And if you don't have a Cricut and you can't cut them out, just cut out with the PDF, and you can put some dots on it, or little pom-pom balls, or whatever you want to that you can find. Little pom-pom balls would be kind of cute. Go ahead and glue those together. If you don't get it exact, you can come back and trim it a little bit. But we're not using a lot of glue. Just lightly put a glue in here, because you do not want it to come through those holes. And get that sandwich together really good. And we're going to do the same thing for both sides. Just glue that in real good. And you can get that stiffened felt at Hobby Lobby, or if you don't have a Hobby Lobby, I'll give a link to the Amazon store that has some. You could even use foam if you want to, craft foam. Okay, we're going to get those glued good together, and then we're going to put them up in the back of him. I did have to trim mine off just a little bit. Okay, we're going to just turn him over, and we're just going to lift those up underneath his hat. And we are going to glue those in. We are just kind of fan them out a little bit so that you can see them from the front part of his body. When you get them even, just glue them in. I'm just going to glue the top part of them in. And glue the hat up underneath it too to it. And we're going to do the same thing for both sides. Just glue a little bit extra glue underneath there. And same thing for this side as well. Okay, once you get those glued in, we're going to go ahead and turn him around, and we're going to add his little antennas. We're just going to stick them right in the front part of his hat, put a little bit of glue on them. Glue them in. And then you can bend them however you want to. Alright, then I'm going to take some little flowers. I'm going to show you right here. If you get flowers at the store and they're all wrinkly like this, the fabric ones, you can just take a heat embosser gun or a blow dryer or whatever and just blow dry them. They'll open up really nicely. You'll have a nice smooth flower. Okay, we're going to take our little ladybugs, and we're going to go ahead and take the sticker off the back of them. I'm going to use 10 on mine. And if you don't take the sticker off the back of these, you will see this on the red hat. So be sure and take all the stickers off of those. Okay, then we're just going to start decorating up his hat. I'm going to put a flower in his hand. Just glue it right to his hand. And then just start accessorizing however you want to. I just put ladybugs everywhere. You can use these ladybugs. There's a lot of ladybugs out there that you can use. These actually were really, really cute. Actually, they were a lot better than I even thought that they were going to be. I put them on his beard, on his hat. I put flowers on his feet. I glued the side down there, put a flower in there. Just put him however, accessorize him however you want to. Everybody's taste is going to be a little bit different, and you just do it however you want. But be sure and add a lot of them, because he looks better with a lot of ladybugs on him. And put a little flower in his hat. And just kind of decorated him up. Alright, there you have it. Look how cute that is. Let me know in the comments which one's your favorite. Next up is my little bumblebee gnome with all his little bumblebees. Okay, first thing you need to do is you need to go ahead and cut out your pattern pieces. I cut all these out of chipboard. I cut these white ones out of the foam. Notice that one of them is a little bit bigger in the center than the other one, so you need to know that when we get ready to do our hat. That's the top part of our hat. You need some trim pieces, some tape. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start by opening up our top of our hat. Just bend all those little tabs back. And then we're going to take the brim of our hat, stick it in there so we can get our size right. Once you figure out exactly what size it is, because you want it to be flush, we're going to go ahead and start taping that off. Just tape it flush to it. We're going to use a lot of tape on this part here, but you're not going to see it once we get it covered up with all the stuff. Go ahead and put a piece of tape all the way around the outside of it, just to hold those little triangular pieces onto it. And tape it up really good. You can add more tape if you want. You don't have to add so much. So go ahead and trim off the little points of the bottom part of the hat so that they're flush. Then we're going to go ahead and start building our cap part. We're just going to put a little glue on each end of this and then just dome over the top of the hat. And we're going to use 4 of these to do it. We're going to kind of space them out a little bit, diagonal from each other. Put a little glue on the top part there just to hold it in place, because you want it to stay in place. And then these other 2, we're just going to go across the other side of these, and this is going to create the dome part of our hat. All right, once you got all that built, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the trim again and put it around there just to hold all of those pieces of paper in there. I'm not using a real thick chipboard, but it's the Silhouette brand is what I bought. And it's plenty thick enough and it cuts well with the Cricut. Okay, once you get that done, then we're going to go ahead and tape it a little bit more. And then we're going to go ahead and build our hat top. You're just going to take a string. I took a little bit heavier thread than just regular sewing thread. And we're going to go ahead and stitch around about 1/4 inch stitches all the way around because we're going to gather this up over the top part of the dome of the hat. I didn't tie the end of mine off. I just kind of being careful with it so it doesn't pull all the way through, and then I can just gather it up pretty quick and easy. It leaves me a little bit of string. Then pull it on up around there, put it over the dome part of the hat, and pull it all the way down on each side. And then when you get it all the way down on each side, we're going to tie that string off. And tie it pretty tight. We're going to come back in here and we're going to glue it all the way around, just underneath the lip all the way around, just in case that string were to pop open. We're set with it glued in. Just lift up a little bit and then just push it down onto that glue. And you're going to do it all the way around every section. Don't skip on the glue on this part. This is a pretty important part. And then just kind of shape it out there. Okay, then we're going to take our other circle, put it on the bottom here just to give it a little bit of extra support. Line those up and then just glue that down. Okay, then we're going to take the circle that has the bigger of the hole in the center, and we are going to pull it around the top part of this hat. We're going to leave a little bit of a lip, and I'm going to show you here in a minute, so don't go all the way down. We're going to have it come up the edge just a little bit, like that, and then we're going to go ahead and glue that down. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and take the trim for the top part of the hat, go around it, and we're going to glue it in. And you want to do a lot of glue on this because you want it to stay in place. Just press it down really, really good all the way around. Get plenty of glue on there. Hot glue works really, really good with this craft foam. It tends to stay together really, really well. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and take our netting, and on the long side, I just folded it in half, and we're going to start gluing that all the way around the edge of that top of that hat. And I know it looks like I'm burning my hands, but I'm not. But I did end up getting a little popsicle stick to kind of help me along, because I didn't want y'all to get burned either. We've all been burned with hot glue, I know. But just kind of take it and go around. It doesn't have to, you know, be perfect because we're going to be covering it up with the other white piece. Just get that net around. You could have probably gathered this up to do it a little bit easier, but I didn't think about that until after I finished with my hat. Just get it kind of tacked in there. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to cover it up with the other white piece, and then we are going to sandwich them together really, really well. Once you get it all the way around, figure out where you need it, then just go ahead and trim it off, but we do want to overlap these pieces. And I overlap mine probably at least 2 inches. Alright, then once you do that, and get that pushed down in there really, really good, then we're going to turn it out inside out. Just move the netting to the opposite side because this is where we're going to glue our white piece on here. When you glue the white piece on, I just kind of got some glue in the middle, but then go around and kind of get it really close to the edge so that your edges are pretty flush together. We're We're going to trim them out here in a minute, but try to get them as flattened as you can. So try to get some extra glue closer to the edges so we can get those flat. Then we're going to go ahead and turn it right side out towards the front, and then we're going to add a piece of trim around the edge where we put those two pieces of white fabric sandwiched between the netting. And this will just give it a nice trim. So you want to start in the back where your other seam was, and then just go around. And just if you glue on the strip itself, you'll get less of a glue mess than if you tried to glue the edges. So I just went around and glued the strip and just kind of pull it a little bit as you're going. And we're going to get that glued around, and that'll give us a nice trimmed out hat. And the piece of foam that I used here is like 16 inches long by 3/8 inch wide. And I cut another one like that too, but you're going to actually need to cut two because I had to make some changes. I had to modify it after I got to a certain point. So you're going to need two more of those strips. And get that glued really, really good. Then we're going to add a flower to it. And then I'm going to add some little bees to it. And I just put a few on here at first, and then I went back and added a lot of them later. So, I put my flower over that seam, so it'd cover up that seam. And you get a whole bag of these little bees on Amazon for pretty cheap. I bought the ladybugs and the bees because I'm probably going to do a ladybug gnome later, and it was a good value. So just kind of randomly put them on there. And then I'm just going to set that hat aside. We're going to go ahead and build the body. I went ahead and cut out my pieces. I'm not giving you a pattern for these pieces, but I did put the measurements in the instructions below. So we're going to use a pool noodle. We're going to go ahead and sew up the long side of this piece. Well, glue up that long side of that piece. And then we're going to glue up the side as well so we can trim it out and have a nice seam down the back of his shirt. This is going to be kind of like a jacket. It's going to be a little bit long. Then we're going to go ahead and just fold that over, put some glue along that edge, fold it over just to finish out that little tube. And then we're going to go ahead and put that tube inside of there, and we are going to leave enough room where it's probably about an inch below the noodle, and then I'm tied off. And then there's a hole in the top of the noodle, and I'm just going to stuff that fabric on in there because I need the top part of his head to be a little bit more flush when you put it in the hat, because that's how the pattern's set up. So it needs to be flat up there. Just make sure you leave enough room down at the bottom to cover up that noodle. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and build his legs. We're going to take 2 corks, and we're going to put them on a 1/4 inch stick that measures 4.5 inches in length. Just kind of play with them until you get them a little bit straight. Then we're going to sew up or hem up the bottom part of the short side and the long side as well, so that he has a nice seam down the back of his leg with his pants. And these are going to be like little slouchy ballooned up pants like bee people wear. Then just sew right down or glue right down that side, fold it over, and we are making another tube, and this is going to be for the legs. It's going to be a little bit loose because we are going to make them a little bit slouchy. And I'm trying to get some corks that line up good. Okay, and then we're just going to put that on in there, and we're going to put a rubber band around the bottom because that's the part that's going to go inside of his shoes. And that'll hold it in his shoes. We're going to do the same thing for both sides. Just glue that side down. And glue the other side down, and we're going to make a tube for this leg as well. Same way. Just fold it over and glue it on down, and then finish out that tube. I got this material at Hobby Lobby. It has little bees on it. I thought it was really cute. And then we're going to put our sticks and our corks together. Slide that up in there, and then we're going to rubber band that one off as well. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and put him in his shoes. And then we're going to tie his shoes. And when we get it on the noodle, we're just going to make sure we got the rights on the right side and lefts on the lefts. And I already drilled the holes in my noodle. Just kind of randomly space them apart from the center hole. Just kind of evenly, so it's so that they'll stand up good. This was actually really not a very top heavy gnome. It stood up very, very well. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and slouch those pants on down. And I didn't show you on the first leg, but I'm putting a little bit of glue at the top part of that cork, gluing it to the leg, and I'll show you I did it on this one too. I had to go back and do it on the other one. Pull it down, and then just when you get it all the way down flush with the stick at the top, just glue that down so that it stays slouched. And I had to go back and do it on that one. Okay, then we're just going to go ahead and cut them down to the cork. And then we're going to attach them. And just push those both in there. And then you're going to glue those little tabs that are on his legs to the noodle. And it will melt the noodle a little bit, but it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to melt it enough to be a game changer. Just push all those tabs all the way around, glue them down. And after I got all these tabs glued down, I thought that it looked a little bit sloppy. So in a minute, you'll see I cut another piece of trim from the fabric and I put it around him. And you'll see that in a second. Just kind of get them flush so that when you pull that shirt down, you don't have any wrinkles or anything like that in it. And that second piece of fabric that I'm getting ready to put in here really helped smooth that out. Okay, then I pulled that up and I went ahead and got another piece of fabric, trimmed it out, probably about 1.5 inches. And I glued that all the way around. It just made his jacket lay a little bit smoother. Alright, then we're going to go ahead and pull that down, and we are going to build his arms. And I'm just going to take one of these these noodle hair noodles, and cut it in half. And then just measure, make sure you got them both the same length. We're going to trim up both the short side and one of the long sides so it has a nice seam on his arms. And we're going to do that for both of them. Okay, then we're going to put a bead in there for his little hand. Glue it in right there. And then put the little noodle there. And then we're just going to roll those up. And we're going to roll them up kind of loosely because we don't want his arm to look real skinny. And then just glue that down. Okay, then we're going to take a rubber band and put it around the end of that just to hold the fabric closed so that noodle doesn't come out. And then we're going to build the other arm. Just put a little bead right there. And then the little roller noodle. Roll it up. And then when we get it rolled up, before we glue it, we're going to make sure they're the same size. And then we're going to glue that side up. And then we'll put a rubber band around the top part too, just to hold that in good. Alright, there's his arms. And we're going to go ahead and do his beard. And we're going to do the beard 3 inches by 3 inches. Just measure 3 by 3, and then we're going to just cut a little U all the way around to the bottom of that line and up the other side, cutting only in the back of the fur. Not through the fur, but just through the back of the fur. Okay, once you get that cut off, then you go ahead and comb it out, get all the excess fur off of it, and throw all that away. Okay, then we're going to put his hat back on his head so we can mark exactly where our beard is going to go. So pull his hat on down over his head. Once you get it flush with the top of the noodle, just take a pin, mark a line in there. And then we're going to put our beard just above that line a little bit because we want that hat to cover that beard up. So we're just going to go above that little line and just glue that in. That way the top part of his beard will be covered up. You won't see it. Alright, once we got that on there, we're going to go ahead and attach his arms. And I'm just putting a little bit of glue at the top part of his arm on both sides. And then I'm going to tie a string around both of them to hold them in good. So I'm marking where I want them. I got them all the way to the top of his hat. But you really don't want his arms going below his shirt. So that's kind of what the gauge I'm using on that. Alright, and let that dry real good. And then we're going to tie a string around it. And you don't have to tie a string real tight. Just enough to hold his arms in there. And then we're just going to trim that string off. And we will put his hat back on. And it was a little bit of a challenge getting this hat back on, just to tell you the truth. You're going to have to wiggle it a little bit, but it's pretty sturdy. It's not going to break it. Alright, then we're going to pull up his top and we're going to add his nose. And we're not going to stick his nose up underneath his hat. We're just going to kind of put it right at the brim of the hat. And just glue it in right in the center. Okay, then we're going to finish his hat off by putting some trim around it. And this is the part where I had to do some modification. You need to cut 2 strips of 3/8 inch by 16 inch foam. And then I came back in because I thought my netting was a little bit long, and so I cut about 1 inch off of it. And I put in the description the size of the net that I used. I used 2 layers. You could use 1 layer or whatever you want. And then I came in here and I started gluing this in, but it was just going to be too hot to hold the back of it all the way around. So I got another strip the same length as this one, same size, and I'm gluing on the net and then sandwiching those together. It just seemed to work a lot easier than burning your fingers. And it made it stand out better. You'll see here in a minute how nicely it stood out. But just put the bottom part of that net into there and then start sandwiching it between. And the glue from one side will hold the other side. And be careful not to get his beard stuck in there too. But you're just putting the bottom part of the net and then sandwiching it together. And we're going to go all the way around. This helps the net from being not stuck to his body. It pulls it away from him a little bit. The only thing that I wish I had done a little bit different, I wish I had put a little bit of a darker nose, because once I got done with this gnome, his nose blended really well in there. And I think it could have been just a little bit darker. And then we're going to just trim those off flush with the other side and glue those in. And then I went back in and I added more bees. This little guy turned out so cute, and if you can make the little bees, I have a link to those below. Next up is my little watermelon gnome. Okay, to start off, we're going to fold our fabric. This is a 12 by 15 inch fabric, and we are going to fold it on the 15-inch side, and we are going to curve from the tip all the way down to 4 inches. Now, I started doing it from this side, but I'll show you in a second. I flipped it over, and it was a little bit easier from this side. So just curve up all the way to the tip, and then go ahead and cut off that little curve right there, because you want to make sure your fabric's curved. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and open it up, and we're just going to glue all the way down this one side. And then let that dry, and then we're going to open it up, and we're going to cuff it up before we turn it right side out 2.5 inches, because we're going to have a 1.5 inch cuff on the front side. Okay, get that pretty straight, and then go ahead and glue that in. Okay, then turn it right side out, and then we're going to make our cuff on the front part. Now, we're not going to glue our cuff on the front part yet, because we are going to put some watermelon down in it. Okay, next we're going to take our styrofoam discs, and we're going to glue them together. And then I'm taking a 9 by 24 inch piece of non-woven fabric, and I'm just going to roll this up in it. And this will just really hide, if you have thin fabric, it just really hides the styrofoam, because I could see the styrofoam through my fabric. It just kind of holds everything together good. It gives a little bit more stability in the body. Okay, next we're going to take our fabric for our body, and we're just going to hem up one side, the long side, and then one of the short sides. And then we are going to glue our styrofoam to that. Just start at one end, go all the way down to the bottom. Just make sure that you don't see any of that styrofoam through the bottom part. And then glue down one side and go ahead and finish that off and let it dry. Okay, next I'm going to come in, I'm going to put a bunch of polyfill in it, and you want to fill it up pretty good. You want it to be pretty stable, and we're going to stop before we get to 2 inches at the top, and that's where we're going to tie it off at. So just make sure it's pretty full. You want it to be real firm. So 2 inches from the top, we're just going to tie that off. Next, I'm going to take my 2 sticks, and I went ahead and sharpened them with a pencil sharpener. Those are 6 inch by 1/4 inch, and I'm cutting them at 3 inches. Then I'm going to take my little hair noodle. I'm going to go ahead and take my wire out. Put it into your foot. Mark where it's at the top. And then cut that off. You just want it flush with the top. Okay, then go ahead and take them back out and put your sticks through them with the pointy side up. Make sure they're even and go ahead and glue them into your feet. Then go ahead and do the legs. Make sure that you cut your jean material. If you do, cut it where you have the seam already finished on the bottom. Otherwise, you need to add a 1/2 inch so you can hem that up. And we're just going to hem up one side of this so that we have a nice seam in the back. And we do that on both of them. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap it around the leg and have the seam finish out in the back. And I'm sorry y'all are having to look at my poison ivy on my arm. If anybody knows how to get rid of it, I would love to hear it in the comments, because I'm really struggling getting rid of it this time. Just make sure that they're even, that you have them at the same location, because you'll see it. Just however high up on the foot you have it. Then we're going to come back in and we're going to add slits all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to just glue those flush with the top of the noodle. so that it'll be finished out when we put it onto the body. And I did the same thing on the body. If you can get your jean material with the seam already finished on the bottom, it just makes it look a lot nicer, like it really is a pair of jeans. But just want to make sure that all of that is pushed down flat, so that when we put it into the body, you won't see it. It'll blend in with the pants. And do the same thing with the second pair. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do the body, the pants on the body. We're just going to hem up the one unfinished side. And then we're going to hem up one side on one of the short sides. And then just go ahead and wrap that around the body. Now you want to come down a little bit below your styrofoam on this, because we are going to put a little piece on the bottom and we don't want it to be seen. So just come down maybe 1/8 of an inch from the edge and glue that around. And just kind of pull it tightly as you're doing it so you don't have any wrinkles at the top. And I'm going to come in and put a piece of felt on the bottom. And if you have a circle cutter that can cut a circle, just measure the bottom of that and cut it out. I did mine. I ran it through my Big Shot because I had a circle about that size. Otherwise, you'll have to just cut that by hand. And just glue that right on the bottom. Just gives it a nice finished out edge. Okay, then we're going to figure out exactly where you want your feet, and then go ahead and take an X-Acto and cut into the styrofoam, and we're going to glue these in. Just make sure he kind of sets straight. Now he is going to be lifted off the ground a little bit because of that seam in the back of his pants. But try to get as low to the ground as you can on those. And then go ahead and glue those in. Put a little bit of glue inside, and then just a little bit around the top edge because you don't want too much seeping out. And then just hold those in until they're glued in good. And then we're going to put a piece of jute around his waist. So just come to, and I'm putting it to the side because his beard will stick out if you don't in the front. So go ahead and put it to the side, figure out exactly where you want it. And then I'm going to tie my knot over one way. And then when I tie it the second time, I'm going to tie it over the opposite way. And that'll give it a nice look on your knot. And then just trim those out however length you want. And then you're going to need to put a little bit of glue on the end of each one of them so that they don't come unraveled. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to cut his beard, and I'm making it 3 inches by 3 inches. And I'm just going to draw a little U around there for the shape of the beard. And then you're going to cut behind the faux fur only to cut out that beard. Just go all the way around that little U, and then you're going to comb off any excess so you don't have any excess hair hanging off of it. Okay, next we're going to attach it to it. We're going to attach it right at the top ridge of the body. And then just get that glued in good. And we're going to go ahead and do his arms. We're going to fold up the fabric on the one long end and one short end. And this is a 3 by 7 inch piece of fabric. And then we're going to take our noodle, we're going to take our wire out of the noodle and cut it in half, and we're going to cut these to 4.5 inches in length. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and put our wire back in it because we want to be able to bend his arm, and then just glue that cap in on that end. Cut that wire off, and then we're going to glue inside the noodle to glue that in. And do that on both of them. Okay, then we're going to add our little bead for our hands. We're just going to kind of hang over the edge just a little bit. And then we're going to glue our noodle down right next to that. So make them connect. And then we're just going to roll them up and glue them in. Next, we're going to put the arms onto the body. Make sure that your seam is facing the body, and we're just going to bend those over so that they lay flush onto the body. And we are going to take a rubber band and we're going to tie it around the very top part to hold it on, and then we're going to come back with a string and tie that off. Just make sure you have them at the length you want them, and then we're going to go ahead and just tie that off with a string. Okay, next we're going to do his hat. I'm taking 4 pipe cleaner. I'm just rolling up the bottom of them so that they don't have a point through the top. Try to figure out exactly where you want them, and then just cut them off because you want it down inside the hat. And then go ahead and glue it inside the hat. Now, once I got my hat on, I figured I had them a little bit too long, and so I did roll the top edge over again. Go ahead and take a string around there just to kind of hold all that in place and make it flush. And then when I put my hat on, I figured I had it a little bit too long, so I just pulled it back off and I just rolled that down one. And go ahead and put your hat on. And then just bend it over. Okay, next, if you have a cutting machine, you can cut out these watermelon. I'm going to use these for my decorations. If you don't, you can cut the shapes out, and where you have the seeds where the black would show through, you could just take a Sharpie and draw those on. So I'm just showing you how I'm assembling this. I cut 2 pink ones, and then I cut a black one solid, and I'm just attaching them together. And then I'm taking some 1/4-inch strips of craft foam, and I'm running them down the sides just to cover up all that black. And then I'm going to come in with the white and put it on the bottom, around the bottom edge. And then I'm going to put the green on right after that. And I'm using 2 of these for his decorations. And then I also cut out some little seeds. So if you have, I have included the SVG file for all that. If you don't have a cutting machine, you can probably just cut those out by hand. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and attach his nose. And then put a little dollop of glue on top to attach his hat to his nose. Now back to the watermelon. I did show you a watermelon in the very front of the video that I purchased at Amazon, and I'll give you that link too if you'd rather just buy them. And we're just attaching it to his hat and to his hand. And then glue that one down to his leg also so it stays straight. And then I'm just going to attach these seeds all over his hat. And I'm just randomly putting them on. This little guy turned out so cute. I was real happy with this one. Let me know in the comments which one you like the best. Next up is my little lemon gnome, and this one was a real easy one to make as well. First thing I did is I cut a piece of fabric that was 11.5 by 11.5, and then I'm going to lay my cone right down the center because I want my stripes right down the front, and you're going to start pinning at the very top of the cone, as close to the cone as you can get, all the way down. But make sure you start at the top so that it doesn't move on you. This way you can use just about any size cone that you want to. This is just making your own pattern for your cone. Once we get that on there, I'm going to go ahead and cut straight up the top, a 1/2 inch from that cone.
and then cut off the top part. Then go ahead and unpin it. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my fabric, leave it folded over facing each other, and I'm just going to glue that shut. That way we'll have a nice seam down the back. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and take it and put it on the cone, leaving it inside out. Pull it down as far as you can. And then we're going to go ahead and fold that the seam that we just made over onto the fabric so that it's not bunched up in the back. And then just get that glued all the way down. Then I'm going to put a rubber band around the top just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and fold my fabric back. And I'm going to fold it back till about 1/4 inch from the bottom of the cone. And then I'm going to cut off all the way around, leaving only 1/2 inch left to hem. Okay, then go ahead and take your fabric and tuck it in. So we're going to have like 1/4 inch fold twice because you don't want any of the raw edges showing. So just tuck it in and glue it all the way around. Take your rubber band off and then go ahead and finish gluing any spots that you didn't get. And then we're going to go ahead and turn it right side out. Okay, we're going to set that aside. And we're going to take the bottom of our cone, trace a circle out on some more fabric, like the fabric that you just used. And then we're going to cut out about 1/2 inch away from that circle because we are going to glue this onto the bottom of the cone and up the sides. So take your glue, just put some glue on the bottom of the cone. And then go ahead and set that on the opposite side of the fabric. Then go ahead and start adding the slits. I'm using about 1/4 inch slits all the way around. And then we're just going to glue those straight up onto that cone. This way, if anybody ever turns the gnome over and looks at the bottom of it, it'll have a nice finished out edge. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and attach our shirt back onto our body. Pull it straight down, and then we're going to go ahead and put another rubber band around the top. And then we're going to come back in with some rickrack and add an accent around the bottom edge. And you can use whatever you want to, or as an accent or you don't even have to add an accent if you don't want one. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and do our shoes. You're going to take your noodle, and that's a 5/8 inch noodle. We're going to measure 2 inches, and we're going to cut 2 of them exactly the same length. Then we're going to take a 1/4 inch dowel stick that's 6 inches, and we are going to sharpen both ends of it. And I'm just using a pencil sharpener. Then we're going to take our miter cutter, and we're going to cut this at 3 inches. And then go ahead and put those up into your noodle, and that's going to be his legs. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and add some weights to his shoes, to the bottom of his shoes. I'm using some 5/16 inch nuts, and I'm just using 2 in each one of them. That was plenty. And then I'm going to use a piece of felt to put over the bottom of them. So just take your felt and glue your shoes to the felt. And then we're going to cut around them. Okay, just go ahead and cut it out. And then just cut between the 2 shoes. And then we're just going to cut about 1/4 inch around the bottom of that shoe on both of them. And then we are going to cut little slits in it. 1/4 inch slits all the way around to glue up to the shoe. And this will give it a nice finished out look when you get everything put together. Just glue that right to the shoe. all the way up, all the way around. And then I'm using two 2-inch by 6-inch pieces of fabric to put around the shoe. If you want your shoes to look exactly alike, you'll need to cut your pattern out at the same spot. Now, I had to change mine out a little bit because I had one stripe going one way and one stripe going the other way. So if you're using a stripe, you might want to pay attention to that. We're going to go ahead and glue up one side. And then we're going to take it and we are going to start at the back, glue that in, and then we'll just go all the way around on the bottom. And then go ahead and hem up the other side and then glue that down. Then I'm going to add a little bit of glue in the front and just push that on back straight. And then we're going to kind of fold the two sides in and glue them in. So fold them over in the front like that. And just add a little bit of glue underneath them. And then go ahead and tuck all that down inside that shoe. Do the same thing with the other shoe. Then we're going to take some ribbon. I'm just taking a 1/4-inch ribbon and I'm just going to trim out the bottom of the shoe with the ribbon. And you can use craft foam or felt, whatever you want to do. Just make sure that you do trim out the bottom because it does make them look nice. And pull it, kind of stretch it as you're going around there so you don't have any gaps in it. When you get to the very, very back, just fold that ribbon over and glue it down before you glue it so it has a nice trimmed out edge and you don't have any fraying. And do the same thing for your other shoe. Next, we're going to take some ribbon and we're just going to tie a little ribbon, a little bow, and put it at the very top edge of the shoe. So it kind of looks like he has laces. Okay, so next we're going to make his pants. We're taking a 3-inch by 2 3/4-inch piece of fabric. We're just going to roll up the 3-inch side. Go ahead and put one seam down the side, so on one side, so you have a nice seam for the back. And just roll it up. And do the same thing for the other one. And we're making that noodle flush with the bottom. Then we're going to take and cut little slits in it, 1/4-inch slits all the way around. And then trim off any excess at the top so that when you glue that down, it is flush with the top of that noodle. Just go ahead and add glue all the way around, inside the noodle, and then push that on down till it's flat. And do the same thing for the other one. Then we're going to go ahead and attach it to the shoes. Just go ahead and put a bunch of glue inside the shoe and stick each one of them down. Make sure that your seam is in the back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put those inside of our noodle. Just go ahead and push them in, kind of centered, and then pushed in on the outside edge, probably about a 1/2 inch in on each side. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and take them back out. We're going to glue them in. We're going to cut our beard. We're going to cut it at 2 inches in length by 2 1/4 inches wide. And then you're just going to draw a U shape all the way around, connecting the dots, and then cut behind the faux fur only on the backing all the way around. And then we're going to clean any excess off with a comb. Next, we're going to make our hat. We're going to fold it over on the 10-inch side, go up an inch and a quarter, and curve it all the way up to the point. Then open it up and then go ahead and glue it down. Now there's a furry side and a non-furry side to the fleece. I'm making my hat so the outside is the furry side. Okay, then we're going to take a pipe cleaner. We're going to cut 2 of them at 6 inches, or you can just cut 1 in half. I don't know what I was thinking here. We're going to glue one down one side of the back. And then we're going to glue the other one on the opposite side on the back. And then we are going to turn our edge up an inch all the way around, and then we are going to glue that down. Just make sure it's even all the way around and just glue it in. Then we're going to turn it right side out. And I'm just taking pliers and sticking them up in there. You kind of grab the end of it and pull it out. It really is an easy way to do this. And then go ahead and make the point come back out. Next, I'm going to take my gnome and I'm going to measure 3 3/4 inch from the top edge, and that's where I'm going to attach my beard. Just kind of get it centered in there, and then go ahead and take the hat, pull it on down. You're going to pull it down farther in the back than in the front. And then we're going to lift back the hat and we're going to attach the nose just about a 1/2 inch from the top edge. And then go ahead and attach the top part of the hat to the top part of the nose. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and do the arms. You're going to take one of the noodles, go ahead and take your wire out, and we are going to cut them, 2 of them at 3 inches in length each. And then we're going to put the wire back inside of them, and we're going to measure that at 4 inches. And I'm using the hook end on both of them as the part that's going to go into the body. So go ahead and stick it down into your noodle and glue the blunt end inside the bottom, flush with the bottom on both of them. And then we're going to come back in and we are going to glue the top part in as well. Then I'm going to take my fabric on the 2.5 inch side length. I'm going to go ahead and fold up one side and hem it up, and the same thing on the 4 inch side. Then when you attach your noodle, just make sure you leave enough room to put that ball in there for the hand. Go ahead and glue it up and loosely roll it up so that you can still get the ball in there for his hand, the bead in there for his hand. And then put the bead in there and do the same thing with the other arm. And then we're going to attach it to the gnome. I'm just going to lift the top of his hat back 3 inches from the bottom. You're just going to make a slit into the noodle, into the styrofoam, and push that in and do the same thing for both sides. Then we're going to glue them in. Now, I in the video only showed that I glued in just where it went into the arm, but I came back in, and after I got his hands and his arms exactly where I wanted them, then I did apply some glue underneath his arms. Go ahead and bend them over so he has a shoulder, and then start gluing them in. And you want to wait to glue them down, the arms down to the body, until after you figure out exactly where you want to put whatever he's holding. Mine's going to be holding a lemon. Okay, then I'm going to take a ribbon and I'm going to put it around the outside of his hat. Go ahead and glue the back of his hat in. Put your ribbon right in the center. It's a 26 inch piece of ribbon. And all you got to do is just glue some glue to the back side of him, because you don't want it lifting. And then pull it on around and tie a bow. Kind of do it. I did mine off center. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and figure out exactly where I want his lemon. I'm going to bend his arm to hold the lemon, and then I'm going to glue it in. And then I'm going to glue his arm to the lemon. Now I'm going to take some of this ribbon that has leaves on it, like the stuff I used last week. And I'm just going to take 3 leaves to put on the lemon, and I'm going to take 3 leaves to put on his hat. And so I'm just going to attach them with some hot glue, a little dot of hot glue at the end. And I'll show you that here in just a second. Just take 3 of them and kind of fan them out a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same configuration to put on his hat.
This one turned out so cute. I was real happy with this one. If you like these kind of videos, be sure and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see future videos, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when I have a new video upload. Thank y'all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it.